The chair of the National Transportation Safety Board says systemic failures are to blame for last year's deadly midair crash between an Army helicopter and an American Airlines jet near the nation's capital. The January 2025 crash killed all 67 people on board the two aircraft. It took place as the commercial airliner was preparing to touch down at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. At a hearing today, members of the NTSB expressed concern about missed opportunities leading up to the deadly incident, adding more disasters could happen if the government doesn't act on the findings of the investigation. Chairwoman Jennifer Homendy talked about a letter she got from a person whose fiancé was on board the American Airlines flight.
In that letter, he challenged us to, quote, leave no stone unturned, ask the hard, uncomfortable questions that will ruffle feathers, and let no one obfuscate or delay the truth. I assure you, we did just that. You will see today that we left no stone unturned.
CBS News senior transportation correspondent Kris Van Cleave joins us now. Kris, the board heard today that air traffic controllers felt overwhelmed just before the crash. What more did they say?
Well, it was a specific air traffic controller because, remember, one controller was doing two jobs, and around the time of the crash, that meant juggling 12 aircraft, airplanes and helicopters. That controller reported feeling somewhat overwhelmed in the minutes leading up to this accident. One of the many issues that came together from a sort of chain of events that led to this disaster. The safety board, just in the last few minutes, has adopted the probable cause here, and it's lengthy. Lindsay, I'll read you some of it. Basically, putting the blame at the foot of the FAA for its placement of a helicopter route in close proximity to a runway approach path, their failure to regularly review and evaluate helicopter routes and available data, and their failure to act on recommendations to mitigate the risk of a mid-air collision. They also expressed concerns about the air traffic system's over-reliance on visual separation, as well as a host of other causal factors, that including workload for air traffic controllers and the Army's lack of a complete safety management culture. So a systemic series of issues came together here, and that left one of the board members speaking directly to the victims' families who are attending today. Take a listen to Todd Inman.
I launched on 91 aviation fatalities last year. I did 13 family briefings, and I am tired of doing them. And I'm sorry for you, because the pages of these reports are written in your family members' blood. So with that, again, I'm sorry that we have to be here.
Now, that report is likely to be more than 500 pages, more than 70 findings, more than 30 safety recommendations. In fact, the board is discussing adopting those 30-plus safety recommendations right now as they're going one by one through them, making amendments and tweaks. But this is a substantial report. 19,000 pages of evidence went into this investigation. And basically, fundamentally, while we learned a lot about the mistakes that were made at individual steps, the board was very clear that any one individual mistake was made far worse by systemic problems that created a situation where it was not so much if an accident was going to happen, it was a matter of when.
And Kris, you've been following this so closely, and through your sourcing and your great reporting, you have already divulged a lot of the information that we're hearing from this report. Did anything surprise you?
You know what, we saw something today we hadn't seen before. The NTSB put together an animation that essentially puts you in the flight deck of the airplane and the helicopter. You get a sense for what the helicopter pilots could see with their night vision goggles. You know, they're looking through basically something like this, where you're trying to look through basically a circle, a portion of what you would see otherwise. And from the flight deck, what the pilot who was monitoring, the co-pilot, would be able to see. You could barely see the helicopter approaching this airplane until it was right on top of the airplane. And it's clear from this animation why investigators believe the pilots of the helicopter never saw the airplane. Seeing that in real time was chilling.
All right, Kris Van Cleave, thank you so much.